some more.
Yo, what's good, people? Izzy Max here, back again with Ryan. This is going to be the mid-season breakdown. Go ahead and say hello.
Yeah, hi everybody. We are in for quite a breakdown.
Yeah.
This has been one of the craziest weeks in the league
Oh, for sure.
by far. Things have been kind of nuts this week. So
we're not going to do a weekly breakdown because I'm expecting this video to be rather lengthy.
yeah,
But in this, we're going to talk about, with there only being 2 weeks of transactions left, we're going to be talking about those, some holes in everybody's teams, kind of holes in their gameplay, what they've been doing real well, kind of what surprised us during the season, and finally we'll wrap it up with our playoff predictions, which playoffs are in 5 weeks.
Yeah.
As always, these 4 mons are very relevant, and
Yeah.
let's go ahead.
I actually helped pick these this time. I appreciated Musharna being here, Mandabuzz, Love Singles, and Galarian Corsola. I drafted one time and it was super annoying. 10 out of 10.
Heck yeah. So, starting off, this is just kind of where we left off in our last power ranking video. The 4 through 7 is a collective whole. I think everything else was pretty on the
mostly
nose.
pretty set in stone, yeah.
I think Jizzy and Nin were the other one because
was
that game
dependent
wasn't
on a
done
game.
yet. Yeah.
But Nin ended up winning, so Nin was 11th.
Yep. So, first off, this is our current standings. These are actual real-life standings. These are not our power rankings. You can see where everything's laying out. This is when the people who had the really hard schedules are now starting to ease up a lot.
Yeah.
And you can see there's a big jump between 2 and 3 and 11 and 12. So,
yeah. And differential actually played a huge part in the power rankings this time around,
sure.
because these are definitely far more in line of playoff prediction oriented is kind of where the head is at for how these are going to work out. So that is sort of why things are the way they are.
Yeah. Also, for me, I know momentum kind of played a bigger role this time than it did in week 3.
It really did, yeah.
So at the bottom of the pack, we do have Jizzy. He just played his game with Brock, which was rather nice.
Crazy.
His initial ranking was that 11 through 12, and now he's still at 12th, not winning a game, but honestly playing better.
Yeah, no, his play is really improving a lot. I know that there isn't going to be a recording of the game with Brock, but I will go ahead and say some things in there that were kind of insane. He finally brought the Anger Point Tauros with the Frostlass. He did another supportive Luxray set. He brought in DD without the Psy Spam, which I thought was really good. He also did a really nice mind game with Durant and Zoroark, that whole set. He was faking out one for being the other pretty consistently, and doing it really well. He actually I think that game 1, Brock was in a pretty nice spot most of game 1 from what I was heard. However, because he faked out Zoroark so well that game, he ended up being able to Dynamax the real Durant because Brock thought Durant was Will-O-Wisped and Strength Sapped when it was actually just this Zoroark that was sitting there. And he ended up getting a late game win with the Durant, which was really crazy. And then game 2 and 3, Brock had a more solid showing, and I think he did earn that win. But that said, that game in particular really stuck out to me as being kind of a big change of pace. Also, Jizzy played you in your other league recently, and that was another really good set. So I think Jizzy's really on the up and up. I know he's currently in 12th, and frankly, with the amount of negative differential he has, I don't think it's mathematically possible for him to make playoffs at this point.
And theoretically, his season doesn't get easier either. Yeah,
so that's unfortunate. However, the play has improved a lot. I am excited to see more of these matches because it was really cool. I'd say really, the biggest criticism I have of Jizzy's team, and it's always been my criticism, is just not utilizing the pieces very well.
Right, he has like Talonflame.
Yeah,
I think
he has Talonflame.
That's the one that
Azumarill,
comes to mind.
Yeah, Talonflame being the biggest piece. I mean, he has all these really cool synergies and pieces that actually are really, really threatening that I just don't ever see used. And there's really cool text too on a lot of those mons.
Right.
That I think could have really, really come in handy this week. But regardless,
and then
that's kind of where the standing is.
His only transaction being that Frostlass. He has said he doesn't really want to make transactions, so...
Yeah.
Yep. So moving on, we do have Hunter. Now this hurts me.
It hurt me too.
Granted, the game he just had was phenomenal.
Yeah, his set against Matt was pretty stellar.
This also shouldn't be here.
Yeah, that should be on someone else's slide.
Yeah, we'll get to that.
That's on Nin's. That said, Hunter has had a really hard schedule, and that's part of his placement here.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, his differential has gotten hurt enough that it is going to be hard for him to get out of this hole he's in. He's going to have to really, really bring the heat the next couple weeks. Which, if his game against Matt and you is any indication, I think he's on that trend. But I'm wondering if it's too little, too late almost at this point.
Yeah, I think he really has to pick up 2 big wins.
Yeah.
To even really have a chance.
Yeah, I think so too. And it's a real shame too, because Hunter essentially, to me, it felt like he was in a hole with his team for the first chunk of the season.
Mm-hmm.
And after our last breakdown, he really, really, really started to expand his team. I think a lot of these trades were really good. The Vikavolt in particular has been doing a lot of good work.
Oh, same with the Tangela. That thing gave me a lot of problems.
Too. Yeah, Tangela's been doing a lot of good. I just feel like I feel really bad that he's here. But based off differential and based off games, we really have to put him here. And these power rankings are more for playoff race, and Hunter's going to have to really pull all the stops out to get to have that playoffs, which I think he could.
Mm-hmm.
I think this placement is theoretically maybe a little low, but that doesn't mean that it's like going to cleanly be in his grasp, you know?
For sure. With 1 win, we couldn't really put him any higher. Granted, he has had the hardest first half of the schedule.
Absolutely. And
like
his
by
game
a
with
large
Matt
margin.
Was stellar this week. That was such good prep.
One thing I kind of want to see out of him more, and this is going to be a little weird because he has changed his team a little bit, but maybe a little bit more of diversity. He brought the Alcremie, like I think, to the game against Dark King, and it put in a lot of work, and then we just haven't seen it again.
Yeah, I actually was commenting against Matt in particular, and this is, of course, hindsight 2020, but I was watching that match with you, and I even said, like, celebrate Alcremie with the G-Max Lapras, or actually just a regular Max Lapras, to let Hail kill things with Sash, would have really, really cleaned that game nicely.
For sure.
Which is I know that's kind of like crazy off the wall, and the Aurora Veil definitely helped keep Conkeldurr alive and get a lot of the necessary KOs, but it's just things to think about. I
like that he's using Conkeldurr more.
I actually really like that he's using Conkeldurr a lot more. I think Conkeldurr is one of his best mons, and I feel like he wasn't utilizing it a lot at the beginning of the season, but as time has gone on, that has improved and changed, I think.
Also, I think what kind of hurt him is his over-reliance on Lapras early.
Yeah.
And now, like, against me, he brought the Kingdra.
Yeah.
I think if he puts more eggs in a different basket more often, the surprise factor will kind of either help him out or actually win him a game every now and again.
Yeah, I agree.
So, I think that's it for Hunter. Still have faith that he can make playoffs. Next up, we have Nin. Go ahead. You can start with this one.
Yeah, so Nin started the season off, I'm going to be honest, kind of rough. His team was rough around the edges. He wasn't 100% sure of what he was doing, what he needed to be playing. However, we've seen a very, very steady gradual improvement in his team building, in the mons that he has on his team, and his composition. And we're seeing a greater, better play. And Nin has been, he's currently 2-4. He actually beat Brock in a very close set, which was really impressive. And he had a very dominant win against Jizzy, which is really good.
Yeah. The game against Hub was
a bit of a blowout, but
Yeah.
he did not match up well against that
No,
team at
not even
all.
close.
In terms of transactions, I think he's had the best transactions of anyone, period. The Wheezing has done so much for him.
And
The
you know what?
Virizion has been...
We dogged the Gengar drop, but it actually is making a lot of sense.
Yeah, with where his team ended up, it's really good now.
Mm-hmm.
The Wheezing is really good. The Virizion is very good. My boy, the unit, Golisopod, has been getting a lot of KOs and it's been doing well. Inteleon has been doing okay. He switched Manectric out for Emolga, and now he switched Emolga out for Morpeko. I do think I think Morpeko is a much better endpoint for him.
So real quick, I think the Emolga might have actually been a counter pick for the Venusaur, and it just didn't work out, so then he pivoted back into another electric type.
Yeah, I think that could have been the case too, and I actually like that. And I like Morpeko here. I don't know if this is another counter pick and he might pick up a new electric type, or if it's a permanent stay. However, I'm inclined to think more it's a permanent stay, because I think Morpeko actually works pretty well with his team comp, and he can do some really neat strategies with it, I think.
The only reason I don't think it's a counter pick is because his next match is against me.
Yeah. That said, Nin is, I actually think, in a slightly worse spot for playoffs than Hunter is.
Yeah, his like with the last one, his schedule does not get easy.
Yeah, his schedule actually gets a lot harder as time is going on, and while Hunter will get the chance to play some people that are more in the middle, Nin's really going to have to play a lot of the top folks. I think he has definitely a shot at playoffs, but unfortunately, similar to the other two, I think it's a lot less likely. Which really is unfortunate to say because he's been improving so much. But
if he can get an upset win, he might.
Yeah, but I think if he can get like an upset win or two, he has a shot.
It's going to be real hard. But like I said, with Hunter, Nin definitely does still have a chance.
Yeah.
So
Nin's team has improved a lot. I don't really have huge criticisms of it, outside of the fact that I still think there are definitely like weaknesses on this team comp, like typing weaknesses that matter.
Also, like, outside of Inteleon,
is a pretty big problem.
Yeah, outside of Inteleon, his team is so physical.
Yeah, you can really wither him down with like double intimidate and things like that. Parting shots, that kind of thing. Max Worm wins can really do a lot. And steel types are pretty solid against his team, and so are flying types actually.
Yeah, for sure.
So,
yep, that's it. Good luck to him. Like I said, I do have faith. It's just going to be really hard.
I'm optimistic, yeah.
Yep. Next up, we have Toxic. This one might look a little weird.
Yeah, it's a little odd, but it does end up making sense. So Toxic actually has had one really high profile win. He did beat Tay, which was the
weirdest stuff.
Yeah, but it was still a huge win.
For sure.
He's also had some big losses, though. He's had some huge losses to Cyrad and John. He lost to Dark King recently, which isn't that good for his overall standing. No. And his differential's not the best. And his other two wins are against Nin and Jizzy, who were lower on this list in the first place. In terms of Toxic's team, his team has actually kind of turned out pretty solid in the end.
It has, but here's my argument. We
criticized it a decent amount at the beginning of the season, but it has gotten a lot better.
It has to an extent, because now I feel like he's locked into 6 or 7 Mons every week.
Yes, and I agree with that. The problem with Toxic's team really boils down to strategies. It's really a versatility issue. He has a Sand Core and he has a Sun Core.
Very water weak outside of Gastrodon.
Yeah, so like you can... So against his Sand Core, you got the T-Tar, the Excadrill, Gastro, all those kind of Mons. And then his Sun Core, which honestly I think the Sun Core is a little better. He has the Lilligant, Torkoal, G-Max Charizard, and then whatever else he wants in the back. Part of the problem is that like his team has just had a lot of like weird rotations. And like, for example, the Lilligant didn't even make sense until like several weeks after the fact.
Right.
Which is kind of odd. Togepi's like an okay pick if you need a follow me user.
Which he did. He really did.
Which he really did need a follow me user. So it's good that he has it, but I don't really know what else it's gonna do. And the Rotom-Mow for Kommo-o, I actually do like that trade. I think Rotom-Mow is a much better electric type for his team, and it gives him some nice counterplay in the coming week. He's going to be playing Brock next week, and Rotom-Mow ain't bad against what Brock has.
I just would have went with a different electric type, though, because you already have Lilligant with a Sun Core.
Yeah.
And that doesn't really help Rotom out. But
no.
Hydreigon for Kommo-o, I think, was not the best trade. I think that was out of all of them, that is the one that I don't like the most.
Yeah, and Toxic's been playing fine.
Oh yeah.
And he's been playing pretty well, and it's nothing like, and I mean he has a 3-3, which I think a lot of the people that come after him do too, but his differential's lower, and he hasn't had quite the same heights of upset. His upset win against Tay is his only real upset, and he's lost to quite a few other people, and pretty severely. So that's part of the reason why he's here.
Again, with these bottom people, there's a trend. His schedule is not easy. Like, I think he might have the hardest back nine of everybody.
Yeah, I feel like Toxic is currently in an okay spot for playoffs, but he actually is in, I think, the most danger of falling out of playoffs.
He needs to get at least one more win, but everybody else he plays is high profile.
Yeah.
So he's in that spot where he's definitely on the bubble.
Yeah.
So next up, we actually have Dark King, who has improved, but his last 3 wins come from the bottom of the I don't want to say player pool, but where they're at now, the bottom of the player pool.
Yeah. So Dark King's team has undergone a lot of changes. The Fungus has been huge. The Riolu with the Slurpuff is actually going to be really, really cool and potentially very threatening. I won't spoil that too much. Scizor is pretty nice. The Orbeetle, I don't really think he's really brought, and he already traded Orbeetle, and he didn't really use it that much.
He brought Orbeetle against me. Or no.
Yeah.
Against Hub?
Yeah, I'm not sure where he brought it.
He dropped it.
Yeah, anyway, Dark King has a pretty solid team. I really like when he brings offensive Grimmsnarl. I think that's always really cool.
Mm-hmm.
And he has had good play. However, it's kind of one of those things where I'm looking at his current wins and losses, and his wins are not huge. Really, he's not winning by a large margin, and then his losses are also not by a huge margin, or by a little bit larger of a margin.
Yeah,
I think Dark King is, of the people so far, is, I think, one of the more consistent ones for playoffs. I think of the past couple people that we've listed, his playoffs opportunity, I think, is a little bit higher.
Mm-hmm.
But he is still going to have to pull some good wins. But he certainly has the team to do it. I don't actually think the biggest hole in his team really boils down to speed control.
I was about to say
speed. Speed is huge. His team is so mid-speed, and I've been saying that since the beginning of the season. Like, and a lot of people have a good Trick Room sweeper is the thing. Like, even if he sets Trick Room, like, okay, cool, you set Trick Room against Matt. Okay, cool, he has Ferrothorn. You set Trick Room against Brock. Well, he has Ascab Mudsdale. Set Trick Room against you. You have that. Like, even his Trick Room options aren't that solid, really, because a lot of trainers have good anti-Trick Room Mons, or Mons that can just reverse sweep him under Trick Room, and then he just kind of gets outsped and blitzed. Like, I saw that was the big thing with Hubbub's match, was that
he just got blitzed very hard by Cinderace and Venusaur.
He just got blitzed by that speed stat, and that's really what it boils down to, is like, he doesn't deal super well with like a really fast hyper offensive teams. And he had some tools to help him with that a little bit, but I actually think he's kind of sacrificed them because I feel like Serena helped him with getting rid of Fake Out.
Thank you.
And I feel like Mianshao had a little bit of that speed stat that he was kind of lacking, but he didn't like either of those mons, and then he traded them out. But now he's in a really weird spot where his speed stat's a little wonky. That said, y'all need to watch out.
Though.
I would say y'all need to watch out for Slurpuff though. The big strat with Slurpuff is that it's an unburden user. You weakness policy unburden it, and then you murder everything on the field. I think he only has 1 or 2 things that really proc it easily, but it's still definitely going to help him with that.
Mm-hmm.
The big reason why though Slurpuff isn't the most common unburdened weakness policy user is it doesn't really get a ton of support moves, coverage, and its stats are kind of middling. Like the other good examples are Hawlucha and Drifblim, which Brock has both of those. Where those 2 mons, Drifblim can be extremely supportive or extremely offensive. It can really go either way with that kind of unburdened proc.
Mm-hmm.
And Hawlucha just has max knuckle, acrobatics, other things, and because and it doesn't even really need to Dynamax because acrobatics close combat does more damage than doesn't Dynamax anyway.
Yep.
So.
Yep. He, again, another one on the bubble. Next up is actually Cyrad.
Yeah, and I don't think Cyrad's on the bubble. I think Cyrad is pretty locked into playoffs, honestly.
Yeah. I think he only has, 2 more high-profile games, and then he's pretty much good.
Yeah, and his trades have been solid, too.
Yes.
He's definitely has had the most improved team. His play has been pretty solid. He's had some really good games, and some actual, he has less wins than the people before him, but his differential's a lot better because he's been having a lot closer of games.
Mm-hmm.
And he's had a couple good wins. His win against Toxic was huge. And his win against JohnBoyce is actually a pretty big deal.
Yeah.
Which we'll kind of get to that later. But I actually see Cyrad doing really well most of the rest of the season. I'm not super concerned. His team at this point doesn't really have any super glaring weaknesses other than sometimes his team has issues gaining the momentum.
Well, here I'm gonna point out one hole that is noticeable in his last 3 losses.
Yeah.
Strong rock and ground types.
Yeah.
Lost to Brock because of Mudsdale. Lost to Hub because of Palossand. Lost to me mostly because of Colossal.
Yeah. And those mons do really well against him. I think that's part of the reason why he dropped Noivern for Haxorus, actually.
That was a counter pick against me. Haxorus was a threat.
Yeah, and Haxorus actually helps him with that, I think, quite a bit. But yeah, and he also doesn't have as many ways to deny setup as some of the other trainers do.
Right.
Like, one of the reasons why he did really good prep for Brock, but one of the things he even said out loud was, like, Brock had so many opportunities to get these setups off, and I didn't really have the tools to stop him, so I had to get my own setups off.
Mm-hmm.
Which I think actually is a weakness of the team.
So another thing I've noticed, which kind of goes with the whole setup thing, if you can out-offense him, he kind of struggles.
Yeah.
John's team is very passive.
Lot harder to.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, for sure.
It's become much harder to do that.
Yeah, I think he makes playoffs, but
yeah, he's definitely going to make playoffs. Yeah. I'm not too worried about the rest of his season.
Next up, we have Brock, who just finished his game as of us recording this. So,
yes,
he is 3-3. Big wins against me and Cyrad.
Yeah,
really close game against Jizzy.
Yeah, the game against Jizzy was really weird. That was probably the best play that I've seen from Jizzy, just over the call. And that's part of the reason why I think Jizzy's might actually pick up some wins over the course of the rest of the season. Like, he's going to be a threat.
For sure.
That said, outside of his loss against Matt, he actually hasn't had huge losses, I would say.
Nin. Not huge in differential, but like huge
not huge in differential,
power swing.
But I will say that is kind of a power swing. That's part of the reason why he's currently here. His differential's not bad, though.
I think he's -3.
He's had some really solid wins. His win against you and Cyrad really helps. His win against Jizzy this week was pretty good too. It was a best of 3 set. He lost game 1, but he was pretty close to winning it. And then game 2 and 3, he managed to kind of reassert. Part of the reason that I think Brock also kind of deserves a spot here is, frankly, his team is just getting more and more dimensions to it as the season's gone on. It kind of became immediately apparent that an ice weakness was a huge problem on the team. And part of the reason why Nin had such a good matchup is because that ice weakness was so crippling. So he has kind of helped address that in some ways. Espeon for Driftblim has definitely been a really good trade for him.
For sure.
Centiscorch for Gardevoir has only come up once or twice, but it's pretty solid.
More than the Centiscorch would have came up.
Yeah, and the Escavalier has been already putting in huge work. Against Jizzy, it like basically carried the game.
Right.
On its back. And I think it will continue to. The Escavalier is really good. Obviously, he does have a little bit more fire weakness now because of Escavalier, but honestly, he has mons that actually mitigate that pretty well. Notably Goodra.
Gyarados,
really
Mudsdale.
Yeah, so.
Yeah.
And if you can hear music in the background, I do apologize. That would be my sibling.
Well, I mean, week 3, he was placed in the 4 through 7, and he after week 6, he's in 6, so.
Yeah.
So next up, kind of a little bit of a fall from grace, but we got Tay.
Yeah. Tay's just on a losing streak right now. And it's not that he's doing poorly, it's just that, like... So, Tay had a really strong start to the season, where he won against a lot of people he was supposed to win against. But then he lost to Toxic, which was a pretty big loss. Then he lost to Matt, which he was anticipated to lose, but still kind of a big loss. And then he lost to John, who had been picking up a ton of momentum.
The game against John was very, very close, as you can see.
It was. It was very close. It's just that has kind of been what's been going on there. It's just kind of a losing streak, and I feel like part of that is honestly because he hasn't diversified his sets enough yet.
He did against John. I will give him that.
Yeah, he did against John, and I feel like it's part of the reason why his set with John was a lot closer. But I feel like what ended up kind of causing a bit of that streak, though, was that in terms of team, I love his team.
Oh, yeah.
I still have no complaints about it. I mean, you got the Ludicolo, you got the Hydreigon, the Seismitoad's really good. I haven't seen Poltegeist was his transaction this week, right?
Yeah, I'm excited for that one.
I'm very excited. Poltegeist actually is very fire, and it actually has some really good support options too. Poltegeist is kind of slept on for that, but like, of course, it's a Shell Smash sweeper akin to Cloyster, and he doesn't quite have the tools to let it do those things. However, it does have weak armor and really good supportive sets.
Yep.
So,
weak armor beat up weakness policy.
Yeah.
Stored power. Stored power goes to like base 240.
Yeah, so he definitely can use that for some very cool wins. His team just has a lot of versatility, a lot of good mons. He's definitely making like these Cyrad on, I think, are almost guaranteed playoff slots.
I agree.
So, and I think that the same holds true for Tay. I think I'm more interested to see Tay's run in finals. Over the course of the rest of the season, I'm like interested to see what happens over the course of the rest of the season, obviously, but I'm far more interested to see what happens when Tay actually is in that situation for finals.
Right,
you know?
and this is a good place to bring it up. Finals is open team sheets, so they will be able to see items and moves. So I think that, honestly, I think helps Tay more, because Tay's team is very speed-based and just kill. And if he knows actually what counters are brought, I think he will be able to kind of play around stuff like that.
Yeah, I think his finals run is going to be really interesting, because I feel like he's either going to really dominate or he's going to really struggle. And I don't really think there's going to be a lot of in between. That said, I'm excited for the rest of his season. He's a very good player.
Oh, yes. He has very much so proven that if his team gets going, you cannot stop it.
From this point on, I really don't have a lot of complaints about teams.
No.
Or play, really.
Let's just move on. I have finally came out of the hole.
Yeah, your hole is you've been getting out of the hole. You've been doing a lot better. You're currently 3-3. However, part of the reason why you're here over Tay A is differential, and B, you've been gaining a lot of momentum, and frankly, I don't really see that stopping.
No.
You have changed your initial team a lot, arguably some of the most of any trainer. However, I think that you've fallen more into an archetype that you're comfortable with. I feel like your initial team had a really heavy mixed trick room option. It was like either really hyper offensive or trick room, and you were finding that the trick room was really hard to set up and you didn't like it. So you've kind of opted for this new strat, which I think is working out a lot better for you, where you're a primarily offensive team with good like bulky support options. So let's see. We got Togedemaru coming in, which helped you out a couple weeks. The Serena's actually been huge.
Oh, I freaking love Serena, dude.
Serena's been very big for your team, and it actually, it's really weird, but it really has stopgapped a lot of teams from having good matchups against you. The Butterfree's been pretty solid. You just got the Rotom Heat recently, but Rotom Heat is a threat. I honestly am shocked nobody picked up Rotom Heat before you even grabbed it. It was on the chopping block for weeks and weeks and weeks, but Rotom Heat is an insanely good mon, and it really fits your team well. And then you got Berserker back from Togedemaru. You already had an electric type in Rotom Heat, and you didn't like. There's no reason to like exacerbate a ground weakness that's already very present. Overall, I think that part of the reason why you're here is just because the momentum's been picking up for you again. You've kind of asserted yourself of those trainers to be in terms of differential, you're near the top. In terms of play, you've beaten Cyrad, you've beaten Hunter recently. You did lose to Matt. That was a good set, though. And you barely lost to JohnBoyce.
That game was...
Spoiler alert.
We both went -1, -1. That was very much so a... anybody can win type of game.
Yeah, so overall, like, you're just picking up momentum again. I think you're going to make playoffs just fine. I'm not worried about that. In terms of team comp errors or any issues, you don't like water types very much.
No, but the Serena, Berserker...
Serena and Dragapult actually are the big helps there, I think.
Primarina.
Prim helps. Prim is actually one of your biggest mons, I think.
Yes.
It's one of the biggest threats on your team.
Well, it's also part of my momentum grab, because I've finally started using it how it should be used.
Yeah, and you don't really have any like particular like type weaknesses. You've done a nice job covering those. I do think water and ground types are good. I also think that if you can find a way to stopgap momentum, or if you can find a way to get around some of your bulkier mons, I do think your team can kind of be dismantled by that, because I feel like you have a team where the backup options are not as good as the front options, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Your mons in the back aren't going to clean as well as your mons in the front will in almost any game.
My team is very lead oriented.
Yeah, it's very oriented towards like getting that early game momentum. And there's a few teams actually now that really benefit from late game momentum. Notably Cyrad's team.
Granted, though, my team, momentum. If I get the leads right and start gaining, it's really hard to stop.
It's hard to stop. Yeah, you can snowball really well with this team. There's a couple other teams that have really good back options. I think JohnBoyce and Matt both do as well.
More the balanced teams.
Yeah.
So next up is actually JohnBoyce.
Yeah. He has been playing extremely well.
Very, very well.
And his team is weird. I'm going to be honest to every trainer in the league. I get... JohnBoyce sends me his sets every week, and I'm just sitting there looking in a corner going, what is going on?
His numbers are crazy.
Yeah, he calcs everything to a T. He knows what he wants game in, game out. And his team is very specific. He's running it exactly how he wants it to be run week to week. Let's go ahead and talk trades. He actually finally told me, he was like, yeah, Licky was kind of a gimmick. I was hoping it'd work, but Roserade's been doing a lot.
Roserade was huge in the game against me.
Yeah, it's been huge in several of his games, actually. It was good in the game against Tay too, I think, if I heard correctly. Kaparaja hasn't really popped up a whole lot.
That's a pet pick
but
for him.
But he really wasn't using Hatterini anyway. Escavalier for Drampa. Escav has done a lot of work for his team, but Drampa's also been doing a lot of work for his team, a lot.
We kind of dog this, but Drampa is a very much so a tank.
Yeah, well, he's kind of utilized the thing with Drampa, and I think this is one of the reasons why it's working out so well for him. It's a very calculated, oriented mon.
Mm-hmm.
When you consider its ability, when you consider the calcs you need to run, it's very like specific in
Right.
terms of what its role is and what its niche is. And he's the kind of trainer who actually can in and out that mon well enough to utilize it effectively.
Mm-hmm.
It's a tough mon to use though, and he's doing extremely well with it, which is a testament to his skill.
Right. So my criticism isn't really anything oriented to his team, his play, anything. It's to his differentials. Every single game he's played outside of Jizzy and Toxic were up in the air until the last move.
Yeah.
And that could bite him in the butt.
Yeah, he really plays long con games. He is currently third in differential, but however, I honestly don't know how long it's going to last if he continues to win by the margins win and lose by margins that he has.
The +5 and +6 have really been helping him out.
Yeah.
But if you look at everything else, nothing has been above 3.
Yeah. So it's winning with more diff is important in these kind of leagues. I actually am very similar to JohnBoy. I tend to win games by the seat of my pants too.
Mm-hmm.
I always build teams like that. I don't know why. I'm just like that.
I'm just saying it's a risky line because one mix-up and the whole game goes downhill.
Yeah, it's kind of one of those where you're really counting on your wins to carry your season rather than your diff,
for sure,
which can be risky. But honestly, I think he's got it in the bag.
Oh yeah, he makes playoffs 100%.
Yeah, he's automatically in playoffs at this point, basically.
So next up, our probably poster child for super offense.
Yeah.
Holy cow,
has had a great season.
She just been cleaning the floor with everybody, other than Matt.
Yeah, her team's just insane. It's so strong. It's so hard to prep for.
The only coach who hasn't made a transaction.
Yeah, and she doesn't need to.
Nope.
Her team basically, like, to me, it's not surprising that it's working so well. She's not really changing sets a whole lot. Things aren't really, like, moving around a whole lot. It's really just that the team is that freaking strong.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, you prep for Cinderace. Well, now you have to deal with Venusaur Ninetales. You prep for Venusaur Ninetales. Well, now you have to deal with Snorlax. You prep for Snorlax. Now you have to deal with Mimikyu. It is just a revolving door of offense.
Yeah, it's a mess. Overall, it's been a really good season for her. And she's obviously going to make playoffs. I mean, she's at like +20 differential. Like, she can toss like the rest of the season and still be like mid on playoffs. Like, she's fine.
Yeah, I don't think she drops. Oh, she might drop one, but I don't think
she might drop a game or two. But I really don't think that's going to happen at this point.
No.
Her team is really good, and she's played a lot of top people and done really well. So.
And then lastly, Mr. Undefeated himself, who might be getting a little bit close to actually losing with the very narrow win against Hunter.
Yeah, Hunter actually, like, props to him, man. That was the closest game yet. That said, though, Matt's been playing extremely well. He's also beat quite a few of the top players by pretty wide margins. He beat both Brock, Yu, and Tay with pretty solid wins.
With Hunter and Hub being the only ones that take even a game off of him.
Yeah, and his team is just so strong. He picked up Hatterini recently, which I think he wasn't really using his rain anyway, so like getting rid of Politoed's not a big deal there.
The thing is, his main rain setter is Liepard.
Right. And Lucario, we haven't really seen a whole lot of yet, but I'm sure it'll be coming. Basically, Matt's team is really, really good because he has this really, really nice core of Duraludon, Togekiss, and Duraludon, Togekiss, and Moongus. Is so hard to deal with. It's like he can lead a variation of those 3 Mons, and his team is borderline impossible to deal with. And all 3 of those Mons can run so many moves. They're so flexible. You can't redirect around Duraludon. You can't really stop a Moongus and Togekiss from gaining momentum. He has a lot of other tools, obviously, in his toolkit, and he's a phenomenal player. And he's been prepping really well and like doing things, I would say, pretty much always 100% right. That said, though, it's really just boils down to the fact that he drafted so well.
Oh, he really did.
his draft is like basically pitch perfect.
Well,
like,
I mean,
I don't think he's gonna.
when you draft
I don't think
Togekiss first overall, you already have one of the better teams.
Right, and then you follow that up with a Moongus and Duraludon, and it's just like, whoa.
Yeah, for sure.
But his drafting and his play has just been, frankly, unbelievably good the whole season. When we were discussing the rest of the season, we were not even thinking he probably won't even drop a game the rest of the season at this point.
No, I think maybe JohnBoy has the best chance.
Yeah, I think JohnBoy is probably the most likely. Maybe Cyrad.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't even really have. I have hope, but I don't have as much of it as I used to.
The match between him and John is gonna be real interesting because their play style is so similar. Very methodical, very run by the calcs. So that's gonna be pretty much probably the marquee game for the entire season.
Yeah, I would agree wholeheartedly. I have no real complaints. I don't want to brag on Matt too much because we always do it in the videos, but he's really good. He's the real deal.
For sure.
He is very much. I'd say that I'm not going to bet that he'll win the entire thing, but he is currently the one who I think is most likely to.
So this is another person where I don't know if the playoff format is actually going to help him.
Right.
Because you're going to be able to see his techs. You're going to be able to see if his Togekiss is offensive or not.
Right.
So I think the playoff format might actually hurt him a little bit, but he's such a good player, see. I don't know if that'll even matter.
I don't even think it'll matter. Yeah, moving on.
Lastly, this is actually our playoff predictions. This is where if the season were to fast forward, this is where both me and Ryan collectively agree everybody will sit. Matt and Hub in the top 1 and 2. Me and John were the actual 2 that were kind of iffy.
It was kind of contentious.
Only because John hasn't played Matt and Hub yet.
Yes, and that was part of the reason why. And the rest of your season is likely going to work out in your favor. We're not sure yet, but at this point, that one was interchangeable. We did argue about that one for quite a bit.
Tay, Brock, 5 and 6. Cyrad, Hunter, wrapping out the playoff race. Hunter and Toxic, and maybe Dark King were the 3 that are still fighting for that 8 slot, I do believe.
Yeah, I wholeheartedly agree.
And don't count Nin out. If he picks up a surprise win, he's definitely in it.
Yeah, I agree.
But I think out of those 3, he's going to have the hardest.
He's going to have the hardest time. We put Hunter at 8 mostly because between Toxic and Dark Kings, we basically just compared schedules at that point, and we looked at what the schedules look like, and we actually, despite the fact that Hunter is currently in 11th, we actually do think that Hunter has the most opportunity to get out of that with the rest of his schedule and the rest of his season. It felt like Toxic was going to have a hard time climbing out of it, and it felt like Dark King would have an even harder time. So...
Yep, and that kind of goes with the same with Nin, and then Jizzy. I don't think realistically he can even make it at this point,
which is a real shame because he played so well against Brock today.
For sure. With that being said, though, I'm excited to see where everything goes from here.
Yeah,
like I said,
this league has been a constant surprise.
Yeah, 2 more weeks of transactions, and then teams are pretty much going to be set. And I think those are going to be big weeks for transactions. You might see coaches who haven't made a transaction yet actually make one, or haven't made very many actually make one. And people who are holding big threats might actually drop the big threat because they now realize no one else can pick it up.
Right. I do know there's also even talk of trades at this point. I do know there are some people who are going to be asking other coaches for trades. Yeah. Trying to. We'll see how that goes. I'm very excited for the rest of the season. Best of luck to all players. This has been really, really fun to watch. There have been, this week in particular, had a lot of upsets and a lot of really, really good games. So I actually think that these playoff predictions, for example, if we did this in the last VGC league that you did, Maxwell, we could have made these predictions and we could be pretty ironclad about them being accurate. With the way that this league is going and with the growth and the creativity and things like that, I really don't think that this playoff prediction has nearly as much merit as it would in most other
For sure.
seasons.
For sure.
So,
yep, but
thanks.
that's all I got.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. Have a great rest of the day.
Yep, peace.